Hey everyone, it's Chay on the mic. We're going beyond politics. Hope you're psyched. Not just policies, not just plans. We're talking dreams, hobbies, and life's other strands. We'll meet the leaders behind the scenes, uncover the stories in between, the laughs, the quirks, the passions they hide, their personal moments, unfiltered and wide. Ready or not, let's get underway. This is Beyond Politics with Chay. Hi, you're back with the Oz Arab Media team for another episode of Beyond Politics with Chay, where we delve deep into the life and personalities of some of our favourite leaders. Today, I'm joined by Nathan Hagarty. Nathan is the state member for Leppington and government enforcer, or government whip. We'll get to that in a second. Born and raised in Sydney's southwest, he forged his attitude for cutting through the political spin. Nathan, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, and thank you for having me back in the wonderful Oz Arab studios. It's great to be here again.
Great to have you back. You were the first person we interviewed in these studios, so we've advanced since then.
Yeah, it's coming on well. It's looking really good. So,
perfect.
Yeah, good to see it growing and getting better, and really good to be back here.
Thanks, Nathan. Let's go straight into our icebreaker questions, starting with, what is one thing that people don't know about you?
More around my dad, but I guess it's about me. But my dad was the eldest of 16.
Wow, 16, amazing.
So big family, lots of Hagartys out there. So,
nice to know. Okay, one common compliment you receive?
I look younger than I am. So
that's a great compliment.
It is a great compliment. Not so sure in politics. Sometimes it might work against you, but I am a lot older than I look. So
I can see that how it could probably detract from the political conversations.
Yes. Sometimes people there's an assumption that if you look a bit too young in politics, you haven't had any life experience and et cetera, et cetera. When I tell them I got 2 kids and one of them just turned 18, that's how old are you? So yeah.
That's great to know. Okay, a more creative question now. Mm-hmm. If you can introduce a feature to an iPhone or a smartphone, what would that be and why?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems, and I'm guilty of this, is that way it sort of sucks your attention. So I think a feature where, in order to play your little catchy games like your social media, it's locked for say half an hour.
Like a shutdown.
Yeah, but you've got to read a book. The book comes up and you've got to concentrate on one task, reading for like 20, 30 minutes, and then you get 2 or 3 hours worth of fun time. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Very well thought. Let's go into your childhood now, your personal story. Born and raised in Sydney's southwest. Yep. Talk to us about your childhood.
Yeah, so grew up in public housing, went to public schools, started out in a little red brick flat in Cartwright, and then we got a house in Bonnyrigg. And then growing up in my teens, was a pretty rough time out there. It was during the heroin epidemic, and I've spoken about that in my inaugural speech, but looking back on it now, it is extraordinary, just how bad that was. So, friends, family, neighbours who got wrapped up in crime and drug addiction and gangs, and it really has sort of shaped the person I am. So.
And a lot of people don't tend to talk about that. It's very hush-hush, so definitely influences in your personal and professional journey. Thank you for sharing. Now, if you can talk to us about your childhood or your teenage years, a story that inspired you to enter a life in politics.
Yeah, look, I think it's that. It's, growing up and going to Bonnyrigg High School and seeing, what were some really smart, talented kids. They were my mates, my friends and my peers, but for a variety of reasons weren't able to achieve what they were capable of. Some of them in sport, some of them could have been playing NRL or NBA now. Some of them could have been chart-topping musicians. Some of them are some of the most funniest, smartest people I've met. But because of the situation around that time growing up, a lot of them either, fell into crime and in and out of the justice system. Some of them passed away from drug addiction, and that's a real tragedy, obviously for them, their family and their friends, but also to the country as a whole. We want everyone to achieve what they're capable of, regardless of their background or their circumstances. And we almost failed a generation out there, and that's something that really, really pushes me to make sure that as someone who guess navigated that and managed to get out and be in such a privileged position, I want to make sure that we don't do that again, and that all the young people coming through now and anyone really out in my way gets to achieve what they want to.
And I'm sure those people around you and obviously that network are very thankful for you entering into politics and bringing their voices to that platform and to those conversations. So thank you. If we can now move into something a bit more lighthearted to kind of shake things up, because It's all about you. And obviously we'll talk about a lot of the kind of issues you've raised in the policy discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Nathan, what is one passion or a hidden talent that you have that you'd like to share?
Probably music. I'm very, very
Nice.
passionate about
What
my
type of music?
Mainly sort of hip hop and soul and sort of anything sort of related to that. So I grew up as a hip hop kid. I don't rap, so don't ask me to do that. But
I think you're lying. I think you're lying.
I'm not busting any freestyles on as our media. But like me and my group of mates, it was probably one of the things that did keep us out of a bit of trouble, which was sort of mucking around with music and trying to produce music and finding a creative outlet. So still something I'm passionate on. I got some decks upstairs and some musical instruments, all of which I'm very bad at, but sometimes it's a really good escape from politics, is to just throw yourself into music for a few hours, and that's probably my big passion.
Nice.
So,
Is this passion for music, hip hop, shared amongst any of your colleagues? I think I read an article. I think Daniel,
actually, yes,
big hip hop fan as well.
He's into his hip hop, and I do try and bring it up in Parliament. I did raise a notice of motion to commemorate the 50th anniversary of hip hop, and
Nice.
I have made some Kendrick Lamar references in some of my speeches. So it's important.
Look into Hansard to see that.
They'll be there, and no, I think it's and that's a bit of a wink and a nod to some of my mates, but even some of the young staffers, they'll pass me in the corridor and go, "Hey, I liked your Kendrick Lamar reference the other day." So it's good. That means it's working, and it's not going over everybody's head.
It definitely is. Thank you for sharing. Let's get into our policy-focused discussion. You have a very important role, the enforcer.
Yes.
Timely, I think, giving the conversation,
Yes.
or the government whip. Now, Nathan, what is that role in government, and what's the value that it brings?
Yeah, so it's a really important role, especially when Parliament's sitting. So effectively my job as the government whip is to make sure that Parliament's ticking over in a nice, orderly fashion, and that, we've got speakers lined up and we're getting through legislation when we need to, or, if we need to, speak something out, we're speaking it out. Probably the most important job I do is count the votes.
Yes.
And so I'm responsible for making sure that all our guys get into the chamber during a vote. And at the moment we're in minority government. So when I first got the job, one of my senior colleagues did sort of unkindly say that, basically how well I do my job, it depends, the government rises or government stands or falls on how well I do my job, which is...
No pressure.
No pressure. But so far so good, we haven't lost a vote. So.
Nice. So how does the government whip influence voting behaviour?
Well, essentially, when there is a vote, my job is to make sure everybody's there. If you miss a vote, there are several levels of punishment, and that's...
Can you give an example?
Yeah, look, there's a few ways we can do that. Whenever Parliament's sitting, we've got to make sure there's at least one person at the table, one person in the chamber, which is called, house duty. If someone, look, I have in recent times, if people
Can you name someone?
I'm not going to name names, but
we're not allowed a name.
No, look, no, but look, basically, some of them are being given house duty all day. So rather than meeting and doing work, they're sitting in that chamber for the entire day, and making up the numbers. But there are other ways we can dole out punishment. We can put them to the end of the speaking list, so they have to wait till 9, 10 o'clock at night to do their speech.
Oh, no, that's horrendous, Nathan.
Well, turn up, do what you're told, don't miss a vote, and that won't happen. So, carrot and stick.
Stick. Okay, talk to me about how you communicate between obviously those in the spotlight and backbenchers?
Yeah, look, that's another important role for the whip is to, there's a pastoral role there. So if people are doing it tough or they want to discuss an issue, they know that they can come to me and speak, and there's absolute confidentiality there. Also, if the government's thinking of doing something or someone's upset at someone, I'll sort of feel the vibe and have a lot of conversations with people, and I'll speak to the Premier or some of the senior leadership and go, hey, might need to slow down on this particular issue, or hey, are we keeping an eye on this person, or there's been a bit of pushback on the way this person's behaving. So sort of feeling the mood and making sure we feed that up and down. So
quite a leadership role, huge impact. How do you balance, the younger kind of interest, the younger political leaders coming through with more senior leaders?
Look, I think it's like any organisation, really. The younger ones, you don't know what you don't know. And so a lot of the time it's sort of pulling them inside and saying, hey, are you aware of, do you know about this and that? One of the things that we've got to be really mindful of is making sure that everyone's speaking and doing enough speeches. There's always a story every term of government about the backbencher who hasn't spoken for 3 years. So keeping an eye, making sure everyone's speaking. And then in terms of some of the senior guys, they're a wealth of knowledge. Some of them have been there for decades. They got so much knowledge, and then sometimes marrying them up. Someone's struggling with this. Well, hey, speak to this guy. He's been around for a while. He can probably give you some tips. So a bit of a mentoring and a role there as well. So.
Sure, thank you. Obviously, you're very comfortable in the role. You exude confidence. What is the worst case scenario for a whip? Like the worst thing that could happen?
Oh, we covered it before, which is we lose a vote. But if we lose a vote of no confidence, then literally the government collapses, and that's all in my hands. So government collapses, you'll see me on the front page of the Telegraph looking sad, probably, the crying emoji. Yeah. That'd be me. So that is literally the worst thing that can happen.
Okay, another curly question. Have you ever had to mediate between two people?
Yeah, absolutely, all the time. It's a high pressure environment. It's a high stress environment. There's a limited amount of time in that chamber, and everyone wants to get their word in, and everyone wants to speak on their community and represent their community. And sometimes there's not enough time to make that work, or there might be a bit of a clash or a misunderstanding. So not unknown for me to pull people in and hear both sides and get them to hear both sides and come to a mutual understanding. Whether or not that works all the time, I'm not sure, but that is certainly one of the roles that I sometimes play.
Okay, Nathan, I'm going to end on this question for the policy-focused discussion.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think makes a leader beyond the title?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think in modern politics, I think we see a lot of people in leadership positions that show very little leadership qualities, and I get asked this question quite a bit by school kids. But I think for me, the thing that really comes down to is when you're in leadership positions, you'll often get faced with a difficult choice, and there's the right choice and the easy choice. And making the right choice I think that's a sign of true leadership. So.
Thank you, Nathan. A wealth of knowledge and a great insight into the role of a government whip. Let's go into our rapid fire segment. So 5 questions very quickly. The first thing that comes to mind. I'm going to take you off script here.
Okay.
Favourite film?
Pulp Fiction.
Why?
I remember watching it as a teenager, and I can probably remember every line inside out. It just really changed the way I think about film, and it's a classic.
Okay, now song, or you've kind of touched on this before,
Yep.
or a favourite rapper?
Probably my favourite rapper used to be Nas, but I think Kendrick Lamar has sort of emerged.
Oh, really?
In the last
Controversial
few years.
call.
Yeah. So, no, I think Kendrick's probably proven he might be the GOAT. He might be the GOAT, yeah.
Nice, okay.
Yeah.
Favourite meal?
Pepperoni pizza.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Restaurant or cafe, could be in Sydney or around the world. What would you recommend is your go-to?
Look, I'm going to get in trouble because it's not in Leppington, but Bellbird Dining and Bar at the Casula Powerhouse is like the best. So beautiful, local, modern Oz food, locally sourced, and it's at a pretty good price point too. It's run by council.
Can see that passion.
And the chef there, Fred, and the team, they're amazing.
Nice.
And I was there on the weekend, so great place. Recommend it for everyone. Won't be disappointed.
Great. Okay, now, the last book that you've read.
Book was called The Stolen Island.
Okay.
And the reason I read that was because one of my constituents came to see me about an issue in the 1800s where a bunch of Pacific Islanders were actually stolen and put into slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And he's from there, and we're working together to try and find out if some of those people that were stolen, if we can repatriate their bodies, and that book is about
Incredible.
Yeah, so he and a Tasmanian whaler basically went to this island, tricked them onto the boat, locked them downstairs, and sold them to Peru. So that was a book that sort of went over that, and we're trying to find out if we can find out where those bodies are and if we can repatriate them back to their homeland. So,
Yeah, amazing effort. Thank you for sharing
Yes.
a very big, huge cultural insight as well.
Yeah,
Forgotten history.
something I didn't know about. When people think about modern slavery, I think they think of the United States, but it did go on
Yeah,
in
definitely.
this part of the world, and that's probably something that we need to elevate and tell that story a little bit more. So.
Thank you. Now, moving on to a personal mantra.
Mm-hmm.
What's your personal mantra that you'd like to share, or maybe some life advice?
Yeah, so a rule I've lived by for a long time, and I don't know who you can attribute it to, is take your job seriously, don't take yourself seriously.
Nice.
So I think you probably see that I'm very passionate about what I do, but I do like to have a bit of a joke, and I think that's important. That we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we're a little self-deprecating, and life can be weird and wonderful at times. And one of the things that's got me through a lot of things is a laugh. So,
A good balance.
Yes.
Thank you, Nathan, and thank you for joining me today on Oz Arab Media's Beyond Politics with Chay. I'm going to leave you all with Nathan, who'll share the best way for him and actually his team to keep the conversation going with you. Nathan, over to you.
Yeah, obviously follow me on socials, Facebook, Instagram. I've been doing TikToks too, so you can watch my amazing cooking show, which I'm getting a lot of interesting feedback on, but please follow. We're doing some amazing stuff, not just in Leppington, but right in southwest Sydney. So please follow and get in touch if you have any questions.